Welcome to This Week in Habsland. I am Jordan and he is Brian, and we are here to discuss the Montreal Canadiens. After a glorious week, you can find us on social media at HabslandPod. Now, we typically like to open these episodes with me asking Brian somewhere between a silly and moderately dumb question. But this time around, Brian's going to flip the script. What do you have for us, Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a borderline silly question, but one that I believe in. Because this past week for the Montreal Canadiens, I think at least, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, but this undoubtedly was the best week of hockey the Canadiens have played all season. Do you agree with that?
Probably. You factor in strength of, like, those are three, it's hilarious, it's Buffalo, but it's three really, really good hockey clubs right now.
Yeah.
And they were, yeah, okay, I don't have to think about it too much harder. Maybe it's not the best. I reserve the right if I had looked at this, but broadly speaking, yes. If it's not the best, it's very, very high towards the top.
At least in terms of the proficiency for goal scoring against amazing teams. Like you said something about Buffalo. They are the best team in the past, 20 games in the league. Colorado is flat out the best team, and then Vegas is a wagon. So they beat three really, really good teams. And so, look, if we take it at face value that this is the best week, or at least one of the best weeks the Canadiens have played all year, therefore it stands to reason that it's likely the best week of hockey they've played since we've been doing the podcast. Maybe the end of last season, there was a really good week in there as they were striving for that playoff spot. But anyway, we'll just say one of the best that we've seen in the past 4 years since we've been doing the pod. So in the spirit of that, I would like to stroll down memory lane here and bring back a classic segment that we have not done in a couple years. And I think we should do it rapid fire. Let's do it pretty quick because we have a ton to cover on this week's episode. But I have to know, who are your 3 stars of the week in the best week yet?
Okay, so having seen our outline for the episode, I'm not going to start with our first star of the week, nor our second star of the week, because I'm fairly certain we would agree. Now, the order we could talk about, but I think the first 2 guys are non-negotiables, kind of. So I'm going to start actually with the third star, if that's all right. And it's kind of a toss-up between the 3 defensemen. Mike Matheson, Noah Dobson, Lane Hutson. For me, you can talk me into Uri Slafkovsky, who had an all-right week. Nick Suzuki, of course, steady as always. Phil Danault looked quite good on Saturday night. The list goes on. When you win 3 games, a lot of guys end up looking good. If I'm allowed to cheat, I'm going to say the Noah Dobson, Lane Hutson pairing would be my third star of the week. It's definitely cheating. And I would have never allowed this in years 1 and 2. No. So I'm okay if you want to shoot that down. It's a small sample size. They played now 160 minutes at 5-on-5, and they have, of defensive pairs that have played at least 160 minutes, they have the best expected goal percentage in the league. Now, like, it's at 67%. Like, think about McCartaves. They've played 4 or 5 times the amount of minutes. They're like 56% expected goal percentage. So, small sample still, but we are actually getting to see the concept we thought about all summer. And in big games against big teams, they're playing a good amount of minutes. Noah Dobson's time tends to really fluctuate the most, I find. Some of that is power play, penalty kill stuff, but whereas like Matheson's PK 1 and Hudson's power play 1, he's the guy, he's second on both. But I think there is a settling in of that pairing that is very reliable. There's of course, on the offensive side, we know where we're getting. There's a lot of Lane Hutson setting up Noah Dobson going on, which is not something I had conceived really as a possibility at the beginning of the season. And again, defensively, they're doing just enough, which like neither of these guys are shut down. We're not really expecting that out of them. Truthfully, there's no one on the Habs that can do that. But they're doing enough even in big situations that I think, yeah, again, look, it's something we thought about. Dobson, Matheson was the pairing for a long, long time. St. Louis mixing it up a bunch. And we've landed finally on put the 2 best guys together. And shockingly, they're great. They played a lot together this week. I thought they looked really good. So I'm going to cheat. Those 2 guys are as a pairing, my third star of the week.
I think that's totally fair. It's probably a toss-up between those 2. What I found interesting about the Colorado game specifically was that you said there's no shutdown guys, which I think is true. There's no pure shutdown guys on this team right now. Gooley and Matheson, that pairing ended up being the pairing going up against the best players in the world, the guys who play for Colorado, who are just going to smoke you, the 40 goal scoring McKinnon. And those were the dudes. And the reason for that is, okay, put your two fastest skating defensemen together. It doesn't matter that Gooley's on the right side. He's been there enough, and they're going to do really well together. And we saw that. Like, that was a phenomenal game for the Montreal Canadiens. Scoring 7 goals, yes, but like defending so well that, yes, Dobes had to play quite well, but at the same time, he also wasn't lit up with a stupid amount of shots and a stupid amount of high danger scoring chances either. So I think you're right to point out the defenseman. And even I thought Carrier had a really, really good week. Mm-hmm. Carrier's been scoring a bunch of goals lately. Like, he scored in that Colorado game, as we saw, but he was putting in a lot of goals the week prior and the week before that. But defensively, he's been tasked with being with Arbor Xhekaj, which all the pairings complement each other well. Like, the top 2 pairings, each guy helps the other one a lot. I don't think Xhekaj helps Carrier so much as Carrier is like, all right, give me this extra load to carry and I'm going to do it. So I think we should, point out Carrier's play. For the forwards, just very quickly, Juraj Slafkovsky had 12 shots this week, including 7 against the Buffalo Sabres. That was really impressive, and he was playing mean this week. That was a stark difference, too, between the last time we played Buffalo and this one. The last time we played Buffalo, and even probably the first time we played them, my memory doesn't serve me right, but definitely the last one, Buffalo just ran us over. They were checking harder. They were way meaner in front of both nets, and the Montreal Canadiens were playing on their heels a bit scared. The tables completely turned this game against Buffalo. The Montreal Canadiens came out, and it wasn't like Xhekaj that was doing all the hitting. No, it was the top line. Like, Suzuki ran out and hit somebody, and then Caufield hit somebody, and then Doc hit 2 guys hard. Like, everybody was contributing in that way. So I thought that was big as well. And I'm trying to think who else. You're right to mention Philip Danault. I thought Doc has looked relatively good on that top line, at least recently. I think that's about it. And it's not like we could talk about a second goalie because there was only one.
Right. So did you, in there, I mean, who have we not mentioned just so we have said everybody's name, or do you want to actually give your third star?
I will give the third star. I want to be different from you. I'll give it to Slav.
Okay.
I really liked his meanness this week. The goal he scored against Buffalo on the power play was really nice. Like, it's so clear that he's a bumper.
Yeah.
I don't know why we spent so long not knowing that Juraj Slafkovsky is the best bumper.
Listen, it's going to take time. It took time. He has fully figured it out now. He knows where you can even see it where he is when it would be then Caufield had the puck at his half wall where Slav is behind the Buffalo defender in the diamond. Right, so he has that angle, and the moment it goes to Suzuki, Slav I think jump over him, but like goes to the other angle. Right now, he's basically between the goalie and the defenseman, so he finds the new angle in the bumper spot. He's figured it out. I think those 7 shots in the game he had on Thursday was a career high, if I remember. I think I saw someone post that. So also career high in goals now, 21. Sets it with 26 games, 27 games to spare. Like, it's nothing. 30 goal watch, definitely going to happen, knock on wood, but that's something we'll be looking out for towards the end of the season. Yeah, it's looking great. He's looking great. Let's get into our headlines because we have to talk about who is essentially the second and first star of the week, which I don't know if I feel strongly, Brian, about which guy is first, which guy is second, but because I've been harsh on one of them a bit, I'll go with my headline first, which will be the de facto second star, which will be about Jakub Dobes. So my headline is actually, in a roundabout way, Marty's figured it out. And this is one of the early points of criticism in St. Louis in November-ish, was that first real hot streak that Jakub Dobes went on. He went a stretch there where this is when Marty was still trying to get Monty going. And he would give Monty a second start in a row after a bad start, or even like bring in Monty after a good Dobes game. And a lot of people were saying, hey, man, like, why are you not riding the hot goalie? Why are you doing this? And I think understandably, the point of view was, hey, we need both guys to be going. Okay, we've gone through the whole January experiment. And what happened here was Jakub Dobes is one of the main reasons they win on Tuesday against Vegas. So they say, hey, we're going to keep him in. And then Thursday, he didn't need to be a superhero on Thursday, but he was still good. Other things happened, and Colorado did not get good goaltending. But great. Again, I think past Marty, even like a month ago, would have been like, okay, but Saturday night's going to the vet. It's going to go to Monty. That wasn't the case. And what was a quasi home game in Buffalo, he went again, look now, again, it's Buffalo 3 times in 3.5 weeks. Kind of felt like a big game that the Habs needed to get after dropping. I know they won the first game against Buffalo earlier in the year, but the last two here, you need to win against Buffalo because a 2-3 with Buffalo is very much in cards. You want to remember winning a game in Buffalo. He went back to Dobes. Dobes was excellent. Second period, the Habs did their thing. They got caved in a bit. Third period was fairly balanced out. A couple fire alarms towards the end. I think it was their crossbar on the BS power play that Buffalo had with about a minute and a half left. He was great. .930 save percentage, 2.3 goals against average. And so credit obviously goes to Jakub Dobes for being awesome, but also a little bit to St. Louis for adapting, right? We always want to see everyone grow, including the coach. And the coach here figured out, like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep gifting a game to Sam Montembeault because I need both guys. It was like, no, I'm going to ride the hot guy. They have 2 more games left. I hope that Dobes gets the next game. And if he's good in that one, just let him have the one after that. I think it's the game of the year at Minnesota, trying to break the curse. And then I think there's a Winnipeg game before they close out. We'll see what happens. What did you see? Like, so first of all, did you pick up on that Marty was kind of being like, nope, Dobes, we're going to keep going back to it. And what did you see in Dobes' game this week?
Yes, I did. So I kind of want to answer your question with a question because, like, why did he not do that earlier in the season, and why did he do it now? The playing Dobes, like, is it did he learn his lesson? Is what I'm trying to say. Like, did he learn his lesson about playing the hot goalie, or is it simply that Monty is unplayable? And like, all right, I guess I'll just play the guy who's playable.
I think
again,
the good answer and the right answer, and I think it's the truth. Marty learned. He's like, okay, like I have enough trust now, but also I have to learn I can't get too cute with it, especially now we're end of January into February. We're 25, 30 games left. I think it's Martin St. Louis growing as a coach and him figuring out like, okay, it's ideal. This is my ideal plan. I have this 1A, 1B situation, but I can also learn. Like I don't have to have, and this is the great part about St. Louis, is that he's not like, these are my beliefs. I'm not moving from them. I'm not Jacques Martin. I'm not Michel Therrien. He is figuring out what to do. And we've seen him, and look, he's being very drastic with the defensive pairing. We saw Arbor Xhekaj get, I think, 7 minutes on Saturday night, and Mike Matheson play something like 74 minutes on Saturday night, or at least that's what it felt like. And so he's been doing that with the defensemen, and now we're seeing it in obviously a different way, but with the goaltending too, where he's like, and we saw him do it last year with Montembeault as well, where Montembeault just played forever, and he ended up playing 60 games, because he was like, I ain't trusting Caden Primo. This is a little different, but I think it's Marty growing as a coach. And again, the good part is not being like putting his foot down, this is how I do it, and more being like, these are the cards I'm dealt. I'm going to learn how to adapt and do things differently.
So that's kind of the answer I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Because watching a coach learn in real time within the span of a single season and not requiring more time to have learned a lesson like this, I think is a great thing. And the next time something like this creeps up, maybe he'll be more on the side of, like, similar to what we did last week of like, I think this way, but should I flip? Should I flip to the opposing thought? Sometimes devil's advocate is very good. You also asked me about Dobes' game. I agree with you completely. It was a really solid week from him. And like I said before, like he didn't need to be amazing in the Colorado game, but there were moments when that game was still relatively close where he made a big save and just gave the team the confidence. And I think what we saw pretty often when Fowler was on a bit of a tear earlier, and especially when Dobes was on a tear at the beginning of the season and when he was last year, the team plays very confidently in front of him. His aura and his confidence is imbued into the rest of the team. And I think that that's a very positive thing. So yeah, he was fantastic. There were some of those saves that he made in there, like 2 or 3 saves in a row during fire alarms and stuff like that were very, very impressive. His movement is still very good. So I'm really impressed. And I like today on Monday is the next Montreal Canadiens game in Minnesota. And then in 2 days on Wednesday, they're in Winnipeg. Is it Dobes then Dobes? I like if I'm Marty, I'm doing Dobes twice again. There's no back-to-backs, and then he gets a big break anyway.
Yeah, unless something really, really bad happens, I think that might be I certainly do think that's the right call at this point, especially with the big break coming up. Dobes isn't going to the Olympics, so he'll have 2 weeks off to go on the beach and chill out. Something that just came to mind as you were kind of describing a bit his play. So the rebound control is bad. It is. It's okay. Whatever. It is what it is. I wonder, though, so the Habs are figuring out how to play with it, but I wonder if, like, because you see his record, right? I don't have it in front of me, but it's something like 16-7-3 or something. Like, it's unreal for a goalie who has like an 893 save percentage, which I want to get into the save percentage stuff in a second. But I wonder for such like a young, fast, skilled team, if there's almost a like, if it kind of works
like
in
a
their
counter?
favor, the like counter chaos
Right.
nature of it. We've talked for years about Suzuki and Caufield before they grew up a little bit. They were just like counter. And I'm obviously like Demidov wizard in doing that stuff. And so are some of the, the other young guys as well, and Kapanen and Slavkovsky. But I wonder, this is very much like in the moment thinking about this. I don't have any evidence to back it up, but I wonder if there's something to that of like, and maybe one way we could check this is the amount of like puck freezes by Dobes versus Monty versus Fowler. And I wonder if the puck's just a bit more lively. And that kind of, in a way, now it does mean the Canadians have to get the puck after the rebound is created. But I wonder if there's a bit of like, chaos has been created, let's capitalize situation.
I mean, it would confirm, like the eye test confirms it, and that would also confirm the two things that perpetually have happened this season is Montreal scores a lot and the opposition scores a lot.
Yeah.
It would just exacerbate both of those things. That's a really interesting thought. Maybe we remember this and cover it, like look into it deeper, maybe next week or the week after.
Yeah.
Because that would require some digging. But yeah, that's fascinating. I wanted to jump to one last thing here, at least on my end. I know you might have a little bit more, but another kind of important detail that happened this week was our goaltending coach, Eric Raymond, was relieved of his duties. He was fired. Marco Marciano takes over. And this is the guy who's been the goalie coach for the Laval Rocket and helped Montembeault when he went down on the conditioning stint. And he wasn't necessarily vocal about it, but you saw in his game that it had progressed from just the little bit of time that he spent down there. He's the guy who was working with Fowler. He's the guy who helped Primo be an unbelievably good goaltender in the AHL, a top-end elite goaltender there, and then he would come up to the show and not be the same. So I might be extrapolating something that doesn't exist, but there is something to the idea of a goaltending coach being a calming presence, and it seems as though everything that especially Dobes said this week about him tells me that he's a calming presence that doesn't want to overload him with information, that doesn't try to distract him with a bunch of ideas, that just helps him center himself and get back on his game. And so a change needed to happen, obviously. Like the move spoke for itself. It's, I believe in my goaltenders, but something needs to change. And that something was the goaltending coach, unfortunately for Eric Raymond, and fortunately for Marco Marciano, who is taking over and I think will be a very good presence for this team. What did you think about that move, and what are the implications of it moving forward?
If I'm not mistaken, it might be the first like coaching staff firing of this regime. I don't have anything to back that up, but there may have been guys whose contracts have ran out. That's kind of different. But for the most part, I think this has been a fairly stable group. So that was interesting, where it got to a point, and clearly, yeah, I think the dots to connect are, well, I mean, Dobes has been down in the AHL to start last year, played half a season there. So they all have some familiarity with Marco. So something needed to happen. If they think this is the right guy to be talking to the goalies are weird. We all know that. And if this is the goalie whisperer, the guy who can get to them, and I think a lot of it is actually in terms, how should I say this? Like the controlling the message of what to focus on, and not, you said it best too, like don't over inform them. Don't do any type of sensory overload stuff with them. You keep it simple with goalies all the time. And maybe he's just better at that than Eric Raymond. And it's as simple as that. And there's enough feedback that they've gotten over the past couple years to confirm that. So we'll see. I don't know. Like I don't think this is a make or break thing. At least I'm saying that right now, but clearly these guys know better than I do on that. So if they thought this move was necessary, then sure, why not?
Yeah, we believe in Team Hugo.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to touch on quickly before we go to our first start of the week / your headline is we were talking, I think it was last week, about Monty's save percentage, and I said something like it was like 1,138th out of 1,142 qualified goalies since over the past 20 years. We did have someone reach out through YouTube with just a quick note about like, hey, how much of this is because they're counting shots differently now? There was, so I did some digging. There was an article in The Athletic about a month and a half ago, right around the holidays, kind of going into detail about, yes, how because of the fact that the pucks now have chips in them and they can track them a lot better, there has been a phenomenon. I'm sure now me saying this, as when I read this, I kind of, oh yeah, I have noticed that. And maybe people who have fantasy hockey have also noticed this. When a game ends and you're like, wow, 31 saves on 33 shots, and then you'll look there half an hour later and suddenly it's 28 saves on 30 shots. Basically, the NHL has gotten a lot stricter with what is considered a shot on goal versus a shot missed. Even if a goalie makes what we view as a save, if it is deemed that that puck was going wide, it is removed as a shot and therefore removed as a save. The NHL has been slowly doing this over the years. It really seems to have picked up in the last season and a bit, which is why we're seeing, among other trends, save percentage come down. In 2022, save percentage was at .902. This year, it's at .890. So that's a 12-point drop. Even shots on goal in 2023 was at 30.9 per game. This year, it's at 27.6. So we're seeing almost 3.5 less shots per game. Now, maybe part of that is, and we've also been tracking, you and I, more the Corsi Fenwick stuff, so shot attempts. So that metric doesn't really change. We have noticed that have a slight decline this year as well. But more importantly, if you're seeing shots on goal decrease by basically 10% in 4 seasons, that's not shot quality stuff. That's also how we are calculating that. So I just wanted to point that out. When we're talking about save percentage now, like Dobes at an 893 and 892, that's, again, slightly above-ish league average. It just, we have to very quickly, because it's happening in these last season or two, shift how we view what used to be like 900 or 910. Right? When Price was around, it was like 910. We were like, holy crap, this guy, he's God. Like 910 now is... It's through the roof.
Right. Yeah, that's otherworldly.
Yeah. Sorry, maybe I should say like 930 with Price. We'd have been like, wow, unreal. Now it's 910 that bar. Or 915. Whereas 900 kind of we viewed as kind of like good goalie, bad goalie. Mendoza line style. Whereas like now it's kind of 890. So I just wanted to bring that back up because so when we talk about goalies, this is an important thing that I feel like, I mean, I missed it. I think you missed it, Brian.
For sure.
That this has been changing. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, very cool. That's a fascinating twist, I guess, on the way that they're doing it. I would like to jump to my headline now, which is regarding a guy who his shots don't do that.
Yeah.
He takes a shot, it's not almost missing, and the goalie saves, and it doesn't count as a shot, because his shots not only are shots, they are often goals. So my headline is about the first star of the week. It's Gone Streaking. And that is obviously about our boy Caufield. Now, I know his streak ended a couple of games ago. He had one game where he didn't score a goal, but who cares about that? I'm keeping my headline name. I'm more interested in the fact that he has scored 11 goals in his last 8 games played. That is a 113 goal pace on a full 82 game season. And I know I'm kind of cherry picking that number, 8 games, but I think 8 games is where you start to get into like an actual realistic sample size. It's longer than a playoff series, an NHL 7-game playoff series. It's one more game than that. It's 1/10 of the regular season, roughly. You're starting to get into a range where you're like, no, I can actually extrapolate some stuff from this. He's third now in the entire NHL with 32 goals. He's behind McDavid, who is definitely catchable, and McKinnon, who
is not.
is not. Good luck, Cole. You're not catching the best player in the world. But him and the second best player in the world are the only two that are ahead of him in the rocket running, which is absolutely astounding, Cole. He's now 39th in all-time Habs goals with 150, so congratulations on that pretty cool milestone. And he's in the process of chasing down Captain Nick at the moment, who has 156. He should catch him by, I don't know, Wednesday, let's say. And then Brian Savage is between the two of them. So I went into something of a rabbit hole. You could call it a rabbit chasm because of the amount of time that I spent on this, but I put a little quiz for you together for you, Jordan, here. I'm going to ask you a few questions about Habs goal scorers. Okay. So I'm going to start it off. Question 1, who was the last Habs player to have more goals in an 8-game span than Cole currently has? And I've added a little tiebreaker here because there's one guy who somewhat recently had 11 and 8 as well, but he only had 1 assist in that span, and Cole had 3. So I'm saying Cole beats this guy, the recent guy. You have to go back a little further. So who was it? And, you know, you could tell me the year if you want to really impress me.
So my guess is always going to be Pacioretty here.
So why is that your guess? It's a phenomenal guess. It's the obvious one.
Because Pacioretty historically would have 1 goal in 11 games and then 12 goals in 7 games. And that was just how he rolled.
Yeah. So Great guess. He was my first guess as well, as I was about to start researching this. He never had 11 and 8. He had 9 and 8 once, and then he had 8 and 7. Both of those happened in the 2013-2014 season.
Okay, can you give me a decade at least? This is a gigantic franchise.
It absolutely is. I'll give you a decade. It's in the 80s.
Okay. Naslund?
Excellent guess. So Naslund is not the guy, though he did do it technically. He had 11 and 8 in 84-85, so technically he did do the same as Cole and had more assists, but he did this prior to another guy. So another guy did it a little more recently, a few years more recently.
Shutt is my other guy from the 80s that I would guess, although if you're saying it was more recently than Naslund, I'd beg to differ.
Yeah, it's not Shutt because it's more recent. Yeah.
Donfus?
Another good guess. So he had 3 runs that were goal per game or better. He had a 9-goal in 5-game run in 96-97 that was really impressive. He never did 11.
Okay, my last guess, and then you just got to tell me, is it Bobby Smith?
It's not. Smith, I think, had some 7s in there, but never an 8. So I'll give you the tie-broken guy first because it astounded me. Did you know that Alex Galchenyuk scored 11 in 8 in the 15-16 season?
He came to mind at one point there. I was like, it might be a weird Chucky thing because he just powered his way to 30 and then shut off.
Exactly right. That's exactly what happened. So yeah, in 15-16, he had a span of 8 games where he scored 11 goals, 5 2-goal games, and then 1 1-goal game, but only 1 assist. So he got tie broken.
Is it Richer? So last guess?
Yeah. Yes, very good. So Stéphane Richer. So he scored 12 goals in 7 games. So that is more than enough to beat Cole. That was during his 50-goal season in 87-88. He scored 2, then 1, then 2, then 2, 0, 1, and then a 4-goal game to cap it off to do that thing. I'll just go through a few other kind of notable names because I compiled anyone who had goal per game or better in any 8-game span. So Kjell Dahlin, who I mentioned last week, that guy that I had to do a deep dive on because I couldn't remember. The reason I couldn't remember, he only played 3 games for the season for the Canadiens, 2 of which were kind of shortened. And it was his rookie season, actually, in 85-86 that he had 8 goals in an 8-game span. Brian Savage did it a couple times. Saku Koivu did it once. Alex Kovalev did it once. Toffoli is the most recent guy to go goal per game over 8 or more games. In 7 games, he scored 9. I'm trying to think if there's any other interesting ones. Denis Savard had one. But all this to say, so like 87-88, 38 years ago. And then I even looked at the next 2 years because I wanted to make a nice round number. In 40 years, no one has done what Cole has done except for Stéphane Richer.
Wow.
Which is absolutely impressive. So I'll let you speak on that if you have anything to add or ask about in that little bit, because I got a few more questions for you afterwards.
Well, I think just maybe more broadly on Caufield, and it continues to amaze me, like the different ways he scores goals. Like, funny enough, this year, his signature goal is that really, really sharp angle where he's almost at the goal line, but, whatever, like 6 feet out, and he finds the you've called it the puck size hole, usually high shoulder. Mm-hmm. That's kind of become the signature goal this year. But look at the 2 goals he scored on Saturday night. You can do the second one first, where it's Kirby Dach, by the way. Hey, well, I mean, this is gonna be it's a weird little battle because clearly Texier is preferred over Dach on the first line. But Texier was a last-minute injury scratch. Hopefully he's all right and he can make it to the Olympics, which, by the way, I think is happening with a lot of guys right now around the league. A lot of these teams are being very careful with their guys who are about to go to the Olympics, understanding that there hasn't been NHL players at the Olympics in over a decade. You're seeing it with Brad Marchand missing some games, with Elias Lindholm missing some games, even Alex Texier it's a league-wide trend. It's very interesting. Kirby Dach's crazy forecheck, doing what he does, separates man from puck, finds Nick. Yep. Nick very subtly, like, what's he actually doing? But past the Cole's where he's supposed to be, right? He's not just a sniper. He is shoveling it in, quite literally, the Zach Hyman. But his first goal from the Dobson slap pass, I guess, kind of like.
Yep. Really
just
nice.
Like to the point where if you noticed, like, the broadcast I was watching, sadly, on Sportsnet, and the broadcast thought Kirby Dach scored from the camera. I had it on mute because everyone knows the issues with Sportsnet. But the cameras thought Dach scored, and I was like, I don't think Kirby Dach touched that. And then you see it's Cole he knows where the puck's coming. He knows how to deflect it onto the net. This is how you go from the good goal scorers of our generation of Michael Ryder and Chris Higgins and Alex Galchenyuk and even Brendan Gallagher. Like, you can get a 30-goal season in here. We've seen it. Most of those guys have it. The way you elevate and do consistent 30-goal seasons, or a 40-goal season maybe, is scoring in different ways, and that's just what's been really, really impressive with Caufield literally all season. And then the clutch factor. Like he has it. It's there.
Yes,
like
he
and like
does.
I know a lot of people are like, Bill Guerin, idiot. Can we just all shut up about that until the Olympics start so they don't make a last-second injury replacement and actually put Caufield on the team and he terrorizes us? Can everyone just shut up
and
about
then Team
that?
USA wins. Yeah.
Can we? Same with Hudson, by the way.
Exactly.
Just tag good until that's, and then once the Olympics start, then Bill Guerin, idiot. I've been very quiet about that because I'm terrified. After like, you know what? We've heard you, Montreal fans. Cole's on the team. I'm just terrified of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to.
If he was Canadian, we'd absolutely want him to go, but you don't want to benefit the opposition.
No. So everyone be quiet for 2 more games. Cole can have 3 hat tricks. I don't care. Quiet, right? Vincent Trocheck deserved that spot. Anyways, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. Very, very well said, Jordan. That thing about being able to score in all these different ways, like all the guys that we've talked about here, like Max Pacioretty is a great example. He had a sick shot, but he wasn't going nose to the net. He wasn't like hunting for pucks in the crease. And that's why he never hit 40. Yeah. And that's why Cole very likely will.
We'll see.
Because he's willing to do the other little things. Yeah, we'll see, hopefully. So I'll jump to question 2 now. Talking about a guy who I actually have no idea the different ways in which he scored. But here's the question. Which Montreal Canadian has the most goals in an 8-game span? Because that's where my head went next. Once I sort of answered the first question, okay, who's the last guy? Then I was like, who did this best? Who has the most goals in an 8-game span?
Okay, so you got to go historic then. You got to go Lafleur has to be your first guess. And I'm going to guess that's wrong.
So Lafleur is wrong, but I've got some stuff on Lafleur after. Absolutely unbelievable.
Okay, so then I have to do the, again, obligatory second pick, Rocket.
So very similar thing, unreal numbers, had a bunch of them. I'll go through his numbers as well because I had to dive in on both those dudes as well. Not him.
Okay. Give me a decade of sorts. Give me some type of
the 1910s. I'll give you another hint. I talked about him last week when we were talking about rookie seasons.
Like Aurel Joliet?
Okay, so him I didn't do a deep dive on. He was the next one, and I was like, I've spent 4 hours on this. I'm not going any further. No, so the dude who scored 44 in 20 in the inaugural NHL season, the very first NHL season that existed in 1917, 1918.
Oof. Okay, so that's not even Howie Morenz is still too old. I don't know who's before that.
Joe Malone.
Joe Malone, damn.
Joe Malone.
Okay.
21 goals in the first 8 games of the Montreal Canadiens as part of the NHL. So the first 8 games that ever existed in the NHL for the Montreal Canadiens, he scored 21 goals in those. And then later on in the season, he slowed down a little. He had another 8-game stretch where he only scored 20.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So that's all time, and that's all time across the league. That okay. I did most of the 40-year stuff manually, but this one I was able to get a Google prompt to actually respond.
Good.
So yeah,
interesting.
Really impressive, Joe Malone. So then my mind went to, okay, but other than him, like in the more modern era, like since the original 6 and beyond, which non-Hab has the most goals in an 8-game span? And I'll give you a hint on this one. There's 2 guys that are tied. Do not overthink it.
Malkin Ovechkin.
So, okay, sorry, I misspoke. Not the modern era.
Oh.
It's prior to 1990. But like since the original 6 did like
got it. Okay.
Not existing.
All right, so post 67 basically.
Basically, yes.
Gretzky.
Gretzky's one.
Mario's
the other.
All right, I finally got something.
The Magic Man. And so they both had 18 in an 8-game span. Impressive. Gretzky's was during his 50 and 39, that record that'll never be broken. Yeah. And Lemieux's was in the 88-89 season when he was just terrorizing everyone. So as you had said to the second question, Guy Lafleur was my first guess before I researched the answer. And obviously, one of the greatest goal scorers the Montreal Canadiens have ever had, maybe the best, you could make that argument. One of the best the entire NHL has ever seen. So I had to dive deeper on him. So I'll present it as another question. How many 8-game runs did Le Démon Blanc, Guy Lafleur, have that were at least 1 goal per game?
In his career, I guess.
In his career, the entire thing.
Okay, so we're talking like...
I can give you a little bit of context because I know it's super vague. Like you've never had to think in 8-game spans before. But so in those 40 years, there were 25 such seasons.
Okay, that helps.
Or 25 such runs in the 40 years that I tallied, like the last 40.
All right, 3 then?
3? I mean, 3 would be fairly impressive. Cole's only done 1. The answer is 22.
Oh, what?
Exactly. Wow. And yeah, so he had 22 of these runs. The entire Montreal Canadiens put together in the past 40 years had 25. So that's the first reason this is astounding. And this included 2 separate 11 in 8 runs. Those were the best he did. So Caufield has tied him in terms of goal scoring, at least in this one specific catered to Caufield measure. But he also added 6 and 7 assists apiece in each of those. So sorry, Cole. But the other reason this is astoundingly good, other than there's only 25, over the past 40 years, Brian Savage, Stéphane Richer, and Mats Naslund, they're the next best. And they had 3 each. So that is exactly how you tally 6 straight 50-goal campaigns, all of which, by the way, were 119-point campaigns or better, some of them in the 130s. Guy scored 327 goals and 766 points in those 6 seasons between 1974 and 1980. Jordan, if he had only played those 6 seasons, he'd still be 9th in all-time Habs goals and 9th in all-time Habs points. So, obviously, humongous skates to fill for Cole Caufield. And that's just the number 2 goal scorer in Habs history. Number 1 is Maurice Richard. He had 20 of those runs. He had a 12 and 8, a 10 and 5. And then I had to look at Jean Beliveau as well, who's number 3. He had 14 of those runs. And again, I'm positive there are some other very impressive totals from other all-time greats. Like Aurel Joliat, as you mentioned, was one of the things I thought of. I compiled this completely manually in the span of several hours, looking at hundreds of season-long game logs. So, after Beliveau's 20 or so seasons, I called it quits. But I bet Cournoyer has a bunch. Howie Moran's likely has a lot. There's a bunch that are probably in this category as well of streaky goal scorers. So, in pretty amazing company, Cole Caufield is, at least in this very specific metric that I've catered. But I think from it, you can extrapolate that he's doing something special.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I was looking at it last week. When can he hit 200? Which 200 for the Montreal Canadiens is surprisingly not that big of a deal because he'd be number 26 to do it. But once you keep climbing that ladder and you have only 3 guys ever hit 500, I think only 5 guys to ever hit 400 because you include Shutt and Cournoyer at that point. You can do the math and extrapolate how long it would take Cole to get there, and it's as long as he's healthy, it's not that long. So yeah, we'll see. It's been awesome. It's the ways he's scoring, and also the when he's scoring is great. There's really no, and I was curious if they're gonna throw him on there to end the game to see if he can get the empty netter and what the Oliver Kapanen got it instead. But no, it wasn't. It's he's gonna score the real goals when it really matters. And, I think he's first in the league in overtime goals. He's tied, I think, second in the league in game-winning goals or goals that give you the lead. Something what weird stat, but this has been consistent over the years. He scores big goals, and we saw him score in the playoffs last year as well. So, awesome to watch.
So you just kind of prompted in my head a thought of I don't remember Cole Caufield scoring many empty netters. Can you guess how many he has? I just looked it up. How many empty netters has he scored to bolster himself up to this 150?
I would guess 7.
Just too many. 0.
What?
He has not scored an empty. Yeah, isn't that astounding?
Okay. Well, there we go. Wow, what a great thought, Jordan. Good job.
Yeah, well done, buddy. Wow, Cole Caufield, man.
That tells you it. Okay, he's awesome.
How lucky are we?
He's awesome. I'm happy we gave him his flowers as our first star of the week and our second headline of the week. Whatever, fun week. So listen, part 2 of the episode. It's a hard transition now. We're going to do some trade deadline stuff. Here's the gist of it. Over the years, this segment, Brian and I have continued to devote less and less time to it because truthfully, the trade deadline's a bit of a marketing scam, if anything else. It's something to get people to watch and click on stuff, and usually not that much happens. The biggest moves the Habs have made, they come in June. That's when the big moves are really made. But nonetheless, this year's a little different. Why is this year different? This is our situation. We are staring down the possibility of 5 new teams in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference this year. With Tampa, Carolina, and the Habs somehow are the only returning teams. So I read this, I think, as most people should, as a wide open field. Yes, you have Tampa and Carolina there, and they're going to be scary because they're vets. They've been around the block. everybody else, there's like, which is kind of nice, by the way. Look, I presume there's going to be a push from Jersey. There's going to be a push from Florida. The Leafs might actually be cooked. Same goes for Ottawa. Maybe there's one tiny run left in Ottawa. But the point is, like, it's competitive. Detroit and Buffalo are no joke, and I'm sure neither is Boston. But I think it's a little bit open. So I know we don't like rentals. I know it's bad planning going forward, and nowhere in here are we going to advise to trade a Jacob Fowler or trade a Michael Hage for a rental. I actually thought there was one really hilarious tweet from one of the most annoying personalities in Montreal Canadiens media space, where he said the teams are asking the Canadiens about Hage, Fowler, and Jarofsky, and to me those are non-starters. Like, yeah, no shit, idiot.
Right.
Anyways, his name does not deserve to be said on this podcast. So, like, we don't think you're dumb listening to us talk about this. We're not going to talk like that. Okay? So that's just like, we're setting the baseline. So Brian,
none of those three guys are included in any mock draft, any mock trades that we are going to mention. That's absurd.
Because if they were, these would be June deals or July deals. And even then, I don't think Fowler gets moved for anything. I don't think Hage is being touched. And Jarofsky is like, that might be a lottery. That's a lottery ticket right now, truthfully. Like, I think I'm way lower on him than other people did. So you just hold that ticket for now. Anyways, point is, so that's the intended construct of this discussion. So Brian, do you think the Habs should be trying to get better at this trade deadline for this season?
For this season specifically, the only way they do it, I think, is in a little burst.
Okay.
Do something small. Bolster your bottom pairing. Get one extra guy as a depth guy in the bottom six. You know what I mean? And maybe they don't even need that because we have so many dudes. But I don't think a major move where the intent is this specific season should be the idea here. And we kind of just said that as like, we're disinterested in just getting a rental, especially if it's going to cost a big name prospect that we have, a blue chipper. It's just not worth it. Now, the one caveat I'll make is if you had just posed the question as like, are you interested in getting better and not with this season like suffix at the end of it, then I would say, then I'm interested. Then I don't mind moving. Like, I still wouldn't move any of those three guys. I wouldn't be moving Reinbacher, but our first round pick this year, next year, etc. That I'm open to. Second round picks, whatever else, lower end prospects, absolutely. So if it's the type of thing where, yes, it'll improve us for this year's playoffs, but also for the future. So I'm talking about a guy who's not 38. Then I might be a little bit more open to it.
Yeah. So
do you agree? Is that where your head's at?
Yeah, I think, and look, we'll get into the guys. And what's funny is, so TSN has done a great job over the years of the trade bait list that they create. And it's actually something that kind of helps you track who's around, who's not. Like, Andre Palat's now been traded. Kiefer Sherwood's been traded. So some guys have moved off the board, and that helps you kind of track it. Like, it's basically garage sale quality right now on that trade bait list, to the point where, like, there's like 4 guys. They have a list of 35, which includes, I believe, it's for some reason Washington's first round pick shows up towards the end. So does Jesper Wallstedt. Like, I don't think that's a trade deadline move. But also, why is he 35th on that list? And it's a lot of junk that people don't want that think that has value. So that's also part of this discussion. Like, there's just not a lot of good stuff out there for what would traditionally be viewed as a rental. So that's, I think, an important thing to talk about. Now, one element I did want to mention, we don't have to talk about this quickly. In my opinion, like, right now the Habs are rolling when Texier's when like the Habs are basically healthy. Veleno is number 13, and then we know Newhook is coming back. He is skating, and I think a return post break, end of Feb, beginning of March, kind of on track. What they said 4 to 5 months, and beginning of March would be, I think, 3.5 months. Young guy, he might recover quickly. That would be 14 forwards. Any type of move that they can do right by Patrick Laine, I think you do it, and it's like, who cares? If it's a 6th round pick, if it's literally anything, and you can, I don't even think, like, as long as the salaries more or less work, you can retain on it. Like, where are you with Laine? Because, like, there's no space for him, first of all, because there's 14 forwards. You have the 6 defensemen plus one of Struble Jackeye, so 7. Yeah. So you're already at 21 plus your goalie's 23. There's literally not a roster spot for him unless you're sending Veleno through waivers.
No, and Veleno's more valuable, as funny as that might sound to someone who's been tracking the Habs for several seasons and been like, we need goal scoring. We have goal scoring now. We don't need Laine. And he's not serviceable at 5-on-5. At least he hasn't been as long as he's been here, nor was he ever a like specifically 5-on-5 guy in his career. His thing is that power play shot, and it's not a necessity anymore. So look, I agree with you. Whatever you can get, if the difference between retaining half gets you a 3rd round pick as opposed to a 6, I have an appetite for that. We're in a, we don't have a crazy amount of cap space, but we're certainly not in a situation where things are dire and we have to start worrying like, we can't retain any money. Retain a few million if you have to, and then and keep playing these kids who are making under $1 million. It kind of works out perfectly. And if you can up the value, especially considering like, we don't believe the Canadiens are big time buyers this year. Next year they might be. In which case that 3rd round pick, let's say it's for next year or the year after, maybe that becomes a trade chip now, whereas a 6th round pick just wouldn't be. So I think if you can up that value you get for Laine, that could be interesting.
Yeah, I think my view on the Laine stuff is more like there's nowhere to put him. He's been a good guy. He's been with the team. He's gone through some rough stuff. If there's a place where he can land softly for the next 2 months that's out of the division, preferably out of the conference, just send him there. I don't really care where it comes back. This is more of a like Habs are a good franchise decision than like we need to extract every possible ounce of value. Yeah, sure. If the discussion ends up being like, yeah, we want Laine, we'll give you a 5th if you retain $1 million, and we'll say, okay, what do we need to get a 3rd? How much do we need to retain then? Sure. If that's a discussion, I totally agree with you. But me, it's more like he's not gonna play. If we can get him somewhere, this will just go towards the reputation of the franchise. I think like if we do right by Laine in the situation, I just wanted to mention that because that's the only guy we'd really like be trading away intentionally, not necessarily more like to go out rather than like we're focusing on what's coming in. Okay, let's focus on what's coming in. So basically this is what I told Brian, everybody, when a week ago when we were going to do this segment, come up with some fun trade ideas. So I was doing the exercise myself. And what was happening is I was going through the list and I would pick a guy and I'm like, okay, sure. And as time would go on and I would figure out a trade proposal, by the end I talked myself out of that player. I'd be like, I don't even want him anymore. This is stupid. And Brian, you kind of laid it out. Like from a forward standpoint, they've already brought in Texier and Danault. So, and we just talked about it's no space in the forward group. Now, doesn't mean you can't upgrade. But especially if you're going to ride out Kapanen as your 2C, I really don't know where the forward space is. Maybe you found it, and I do have some forwards I want to talk about, but that's challenging. Goaltending, it is what it is. Whatever. Defense, yes. A right-handed defenseman that can be somewhere probably in your second pairing would be the most ideal location. Now, I'm going to have some names here. They're not the sexiest names. We've talked pie in the sky ideas in the past. This will be very, very a sobering discussion, but like they're good players. They're just get ready. And then the other one is if you're not convinced of Texier or Doc and you need a proper guy on that wing, ideally someone who shoots left, but I'm not going to get too picky, then sure. But that's kind of how I see it. Like it's a bit of a crowded room right now. And like the top end of the defense is more or less fine. Goaltending, we're not going to touch. I think we're all okay with that. And the forward group, like there's 4 guys in the top 6 I feel totally fine about. And Kapanen, I think, is more or less earned it, unless there's really an upgrade. And we can talk Ryan O'Reilly if you want, because he's the name that would make the most sense from a center standpoint to grab that spot. And then the bottom 6 to me is stuffed. Like, I don't know where the space people think there is, but I don't know who are you booting out. Even when Newhook comes back, who are you booting out right now? So point is, like, it's a bit of an exercise. So, like, we'll go through some names now, unless you wanted to, like, walk through what your process was, Brian. But, like, I was struggling. I would go through a name, and by the end of it, I'm like, it's an exercise in futility because like the Habs have a guy equivalent or they're getting 10 years older or, it's right. So that was the challenge. And I'm sure I would presume the front office is doing the same exercise right now.
Yeah. I think they're doing what we've been doing, which is scratching our heads saying, okay, yes, there's these things that we could be fixing. Like, so the right-hand defenseman thing for me, I honestly put it aside when I saw A, what was out there, and B, the quality of the play of the defenseman this week. I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to look at that. The biggest hole to me was the second line center thing. If you don't believe in Doc and Kapanen, and even then I was in a similar boat where I'm looking and I'm like, I don't really want a 35-year-old Nazem Kadri. I didn't want a 27-year-old Nazem Kadri. Like, why are you offering me a 35-year-old version of him? So there's not that much. You also, the other prompt you gave me last week was let's get fun with it. Like, let's go for some off the board guys. So I have two that are on the board that I think are more realistic. One of them's not really realistic at all, but like, could be exciting if it panned out. These guys. And I have one that's way off the board.
Okay, let's start with on the board. I also have my on the board of like, this is who we're supposed to be talking about. I'll just go quickly. Blake Coleman and Nazem Kadri. I looked at them, thought about them, don't want them.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that's as far as I got. They're 34. They're both slowing down. It was reported Kadri doesn't have the Habs on his no trade list, which theoretically means a trade would happen. I just don't think that's an upgrade for what you're getting in the age and the salary. At the beginning of the year, I did because I thought he was quite good last year. I really did. He slowed down. Same goes for Blake Coleman. Like it's really slowed down this year. I know Calgary is a tire fire, but just not interested. So I don't know. Like in terms of like the guys we're supposed to be talking about. Those are the two guys towards the top of the list that I think most people who follow the Canadiens are going to mention. I don't like them. I know you don't. You've mentioned time and time again about Kadri. Are you in the same spot with Coleman?
Coleman, I don't feel as viscerally about. I just, what's the sequel point?
Exactly.
Like at best on the Montreal Canadiens, I think he's a third liner, and we have a lot of those dudes. So it's not worth paying $5 million next year as well. Because that's the other thing. Coleman's not a rental. Kadri's definitely not a rental unless you believe rentals have 3 years on their contract after this one. So that's a complete non-starter at his age. One guy I looked at who's 3 years younger is Vincent Trocheck, because that's the other guy that people have mentioned a lot, and he's not a big dude, but he is a second-line center, a serviceable second-line center who is relatively physical. But he doesn't jump off the page either. 32 years old, a little over 5.5 for the next 3 years. It's still not ideal.
So let's talk. I'll throw the hammer down at the end that I think is going to come into this discussion. But let's just do the exercise.
Yeah,
I think this team 2 years from now, this actually makes a lot of sense. A 32-year-old center with 3 years left. Again, presuming the team is a little bit further in their progression, where they're a bit more serious of being a playoff contender. I actually think this makes a lot of sense.
Right. I would hope that that's for the third line, not the second, though, at that point. Like, hopefully we will have solved the second line center thing over the next 2-3 years with somebody younger and more core.
I'll cede that. The part where I think it falls apart, I would presume, I haven't checked, maybe you did, if I'm presuming Trocheck has some type of no trade, and I would be shocked if the Habs aren't on it. But the big one is, and it's been reported by Eric Engels and by Pierre Maguire, New York, the Rangers are not trading with the Habs. They're still fussy over the way Kent Hughes left. Whatever, their loss. Because I was trying to, from a different angle, from the fun trade I was trying to come up with, I was trying to see how we can smuggle Will Cooley out of New York.
Right.
Because that's a dude that, like, upgrade on...
That changes things,
Upgrade on Bodzuk, probably a second-line dude, like kind of a perfect second-line dude to put next to Demidov or Slav, and then you bump the other guy back up to the first line. They're not going to trade with the Habs. It's been reported time and time again. I feel like we get this report every 6 months. So,
right.
Again, from an idea standpoint, Trocheck, a Trocheck type player, keep the age, keep the contract, whatever, makes a lot of sense in like 2 years. I think you agree, right? It doesn't make sense to do it right now.
No, I don't think it does. The price on Cooley also, even if they were willing to trade with us, the price would be pretty darn high.
Cooley's a hockey trade. If I'm allowed to use that stupid lingo. It's it's real stuff going back.
Even though New York sent out letter 2.0 of it's not a rebuild, it's a retool.
All right.
You silly
Good
gooses.
What are you Colton doing? Parayko, brought him up last week. After further consideration, it's a no for me. Like 4 years,
awesome,
6.5. It's just
I love hearing the word no on that.
It just, and now there's other right-handed defensemen I will bring up that you might get a little annoyed about. I think one you'll actually really like. But like Colton Parayko, looked at it a bit more. Too much money, too old, too much term. Don't think it's enough of an upgrade for how much you're gonna pay. Like he's certainly better than Alex Carrier. He would certainly be a smooth fit on that second pairing if you put him with Matheson. But I just don't think for what you're paying for, like in terms of paying like in the future and like roster, we got to start thinking about longer contracts too with this team. I know it's been like, we're always gonna have cap space. Okay, calm down. And it's also like Colton Parayko would cost you an arm and a leg with how much. He's still a very good, serviceable defenseman. So I'm out on that one too.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, one dude you mentioned before I'm changing gears completely, but like he's on my mind now because he was on my mind a lot at the beginning, and then I was like, it's not happening. And then Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you want to just talk about him for like, he's nearly a point per game. He's been good since basically shouting at himself in front of the media, being like, I'm dog shit. He's been relatively good since. And
okay,
I don't know, not the ideal thing, but like getting closer.
I prefer this over Trocheck if I had to do one. I think the cost would be substantial. I believe there's an extra year on that contract as well. So it's not a total.
There is 1 year. Yeah. 4.5.
So it's cheap, but it's one more year. This costs you an arm and a leg. It's also like, it's because it's Kapanen. It's a little bit less of a big deal, but it's like, are you willing to remove Kapanen's experience in the playoffs or even in a playoff push as a second line center for Ryan O'Reilly? Because this would mean Kapanen's getting pushed to wing, right? Because it would mean, I presume Danault wouldn't be going out. Evans, I mean, you could bump Evans in the trade, I guess, and that would just bump Danault to the fourth line and Kapanen to the third line. Because Ryan O'Reilly would have to be the second line center, right?
He would have to be the second line center. So you might not like to hear this, but what I've got my friend Carl in my head. You know Carl, he's in our hockey pool. He's kicking my butt this week.
Is. Good job, Carl.
He's less big on Kapanen than we are. He's saying at this moment, sell high. And is his destination not moving down to be a winger, but it becomes Nashville if it's a Ryan O'Reilly trade?
Okay. Listen, fair point. I don't think anywhere in here I have said like Oliver Kapanen is a long-term 2C stud. I don't know if anyone really believes that. Now he's fitting the role this year, and he's certainly benefiting to an extent from playing with two of the three most talented wingers in the franchise. It's an interesting point. I mean, I don't know if the move's for O'Reilly. I would want to go a bit younger, but I certainly see him as a sell high guy. I agree with the idea, but I'm not sure O'Reilly's the right fit. But it would likely cost Kapanen. I know I said Evans. It'll be Kapanen that has to get that would be part of it, plus a high pick, plus something else probably. It's going to be a lot.
So along the lines of like selling high on Kapanen, it doesn't have to necessarily be him, but you said someone younger. One name that jumped out at me, and I mentioned it as we were just going through our like preliminary talk last week, and you shot it down. I'm wondering if you've turned around Robert Thomas from the St. Louis Blues.
Okay. It's a lot of contract, right?
Yes.
So what's happened this year? If we can answer that question mid-season, then I'm a bit more open to it. But it's, if I recall, I'm going to try to find it's $8.125 million for 5 more years, fallen off a cliff from what he did very a la Suzuki after the Four Nations, where he set the world on fire along with the rest of the Blues last year. And it seems like that the creative spark kind of fell out of the trunk. Now look, the Blues are a bit of a tire fire. I mean, the Canadiens just keep, maybe it's a little, or maybe this is a new cottage industry for the Habs actually. Maybe we flip it, that we just slowly pick apart the Blues and find they're good players. We started with Zach Podolczyk, and then we made our way to Alex Teixeira, and it's like, okay, who's next? We've been talking about Colin Parayko for the last 6 months, and now you're like, hold on, let's go for the big fish. Let's go for Robert Thomas. Yeah. That's a tricky one, and it would cost a lot. And I don't know if that's a trade deadline move. It's a guy I'm willing to talk to you about in like May and June. How about that?
Okay. It's also the type of dude they'd be selling low on, not only because he's having, compared to his point per game seasons of yesteryear, this is not that. He's having a bad year. Not only that, but he's going through a leg procedure, like an operation to fix that, and he'll only be back like after the Olympics. So like it's the perfect timing, quote unquote. There's never a great timing for an injury and a surgery. Nobody wants that. But if you're going to do it when you don't have to miss work. So like in his case, he's going to miss a bit, but hopefully he's back like right after the Olympics. So is that something that's been nagging? Is that, chronic? And, so there's a lot of like other things that go into that, but that was like the youngest name that was interesting on this list. Not the youngest name, who I'm going to jump to shortly, and you're going to have a good laugh, other than Wallstedt, who we've already said that doesn't make sense. But screw it. Why am I beating around the bush? Are you interested in Jesperi Kotkaniemi for the Carolina Hurricanes? How is he 9th on this board?
This is why this board is dumb, because Andrew Mangiapane is 10th.
I can't think of a guy with less value than a guy almost making $5 million and who is ineffective.
The trade deadline is a garage sale. You don't want 90% of the crap that's being sold. That's why the Canadiens 1 year in the mix of the terrible rebuild could only get Evgeny Dodonov or Jonathan Drouin. They didn't make any other trades at that deadline. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks. Unless you're putting real stuff on the table and making a real move, which, by the way, that means it's not happening at the deadline. It means it's happening in the weeks before that, where you're getting a proper trade and getting actual stuff. I don't know, like Panarin. Oh, so we haven't said Panarin's name. Now, again, Rangers caveat.
Yeah, that's the big
so
one.
it'll never happen. He doesn't fit with the Habs. He's too old. He wants an extra contract, which is why we're not talking about it. Panarin's actually a good hockey player. Everyone else that we're talking through, you can poke a lot of holes.
Sure.
So, a couple more names. We talked about O'Reilly. Okay, so let's do my first actual trade. Let's throw something down here. To Montreal, Steven Stamkos and Nashville's 3rd round pick this year, going back Alex Newhook. Who says no? Nashville gets out of the Stamkos contract. They get Alex Newhook, who's looking pretty good. 1 more year on the contract, RFA after that, which is why I had to add just a little bit more for the Habs. No salary retention on Nashville, so they're just getting out of the Stammer contract. You got a 24, 25-year-old winger, kind of centery. Who says no? Who hates this one?
I think the Habs hate this more because the Preds are very, it seems from the outside looking in, they're very willing to move Stamkos, and he likely wants to go elsewhere near the end of his career. I don't think the Habs are super intrigued by the idea of getting rid of Alex Newhook, especially after we didn't get a full send with him this year. We didn't get to see yet what he's really capable of. We saw a little spurt of it and we were like, holy crow, there's more to unearth there.
Yeah.
And then cement got poured on that earth with the injury, and now finally we're breaking through the cement. We're going to get back to the earth, see what we can unearth with Alex Newhook. Sorry, I know that analogy is falling apart, but like there's more to see here with him. So I don't know that you move him, especially a guy coming back from injury, similar to Robert Thomas, is selling low on them.
If Steven Stamkos was on this team right now, he'd be 2nd in goals, and he's playing with the people in Nashville. Now you stick him up on that first line.
Yeah, that's compelling.
Now I get it.
That's compelling.
I mentioned the thing about I prefer a lefty. Steven Stamkos is definitively not that. But you could put him with Nick and Cole. Those 3 guys, I trust them to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you on that one.
Look, you might be swaying me. I'm adverse to moving Alex Newhook, but if the pieces were different, I think of all the old dudes we've discussed so far, and he might be the oldest of them all that we've actually considered, 36 years old. Like, that's actually a compelling one. Nashville's also in a situation where retaining, it's 2 extra years. I don't think they'll want to retain that long.
Look,
I don't know.
Yeah.
With retention, like the idea of him making 8 at 38 years old, like when the contract's coming to a close, is crazy to me, especially as our team is heating up and Demidov needs his new contract and other dudes are going to need contracts by that point. Like, I don't know that the fit makes sense. If they were to retain some, knowing they're embarking on something of a rebuild, maybe that's compelling.
Yeah. So look, I knew you'd say no because I know you're adverse to making the team older, especially when you're moving about, like I said, you're making your team by 1 roster spot 12, 15 years older. My point is there's a logjam right now, and I think there's an open spot in the top 6, and Steven Stamkos fits that, I'm pretty sure, like a glove. Like, it'd be an easy fit. Nick Suzuki will have, in a full season, 90 assists, if that's the case. He'll score 9 goals, but it's because he'll just keep passing, and someone will keep scoring.
Right.
So there's something there. Now, Stammer could fall off a cliff in October, and that could make this look terrible. But it's only 2 years on that deal, and I haven't looked at the buyout proofness of it. But I'd presume Stamkos got the contract he wanted, so it's probably has some language in there that limits the ability to buy it out. But just an idea. Okay, I have 2 more. I have 1 more like standard down the middle one. Do you want me to go into that, or do you want to jump into one?
So I want to jump into. So I don't have any mock trades specifically with like things going back. I more just have like targets. And then ideas of what would likely allow you to get them. And one of these targets, I know I just talked about a team not wanting to retain long-term, but there might be one exception. It's the 3rd youngest guy on this list, Elias Pettersson for the Vancouver Canucks. So when you told me go fun, I was thinking of Elias Pettersson from 3 years ago.
Okay, time travel.
What more fun is that? Time traveling back. So 27 years old, not having even close to the type of season that he was when he was scoring 100-plus points. $11.6 million for 6 more years. If Vancouver, who is absolutely embarking on a rebuild and might end up with the 1st overall pick, if they were willing to retain a few million on that, knowing that their rebuild probably doesn't end until the contract expires, Like if they were to retain $4 million to bring him under Suzuki, does your appetite grow?
It's tough. You could argue some of it has been like coaching over the past year. So he had some good looks. He's definitely looked better this year. There was also the Miller stuff that was going on. If this is who did Vegas fool into retaining salary? Is it San Jose on the Hurdle trade? Like if you can do that, if you can get a team to be like, yeah, I'll retain salary for half a decade. Now I'm ready to listen. But that's like 11.6 is a lot of money. And I don't know, like you can get a team to hold like 1.5, 2 million for half a decade. I don't know if you can get them to hold 4 million. It's such a risk. And again, it could be just capping in and a little bit more going back. This risk for me is way too high.
Okay.
For me to push forward on it, really.
So I think that's very fair. And that's part of the reason that I didn't have anything going the other way, because even just the discussion of like, yeah, it'd be fun, but you're living in the past, man. That kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. So I'll let you do your next one. I have one more target after that might be an interesting discussion, but
okay.
I want to hear your next proposal.
All right, he's not on this trade bait list, so it's going to throw you out for a bit of a loop. He does have a no trade clause, but that's like half the league at this point. Adam Larson out of Seattle. Right-handed defenseman, 33 years old, will get you some penalty kill. Basically what I described earlier, a second pairing right-handed defenseman, 3 more years left at 5.25. Like I said, he's 33. Seattle, the world's most anonymous franchise, and I mean that across all sports. Like, what are the Kraken even? This is the guy. I think it's not sexy at all. But like, how many times do we have to see St. Louis play Struble or Jack 8 minutes? And Mike Matheson, I know I joked earlier, Mike Matheson played 28 minutes in a regulation game? What? So it would be just even another contract. Now it's 3 years, but it's another contract going on the back end, and these guys are starting to get really expensive. And it's a bit of an indictment to Reinbacher if you're making this move as well, because that basically means you have 5 guys now, and they're like big enough money contract.
Yeah.
But if you want to make the team better for now and still have like a bit of runway going forward, so I looked at Stamkos because I didn't mind the 2 years. This is 3 years. Larson's 33, so it's not as debilitating, but like this makes your team better. This is a much better version of Alex Carrier.
Sure.
We can get into like what I think is
bigger
value,
and meaner and tougher and playoff hockeyer, if you will, for sure. The first thought I had was like the Kraken are in a playoff position right now. They're in the Pacific in the 3rd position. Now they could fall off a cliff. Another team could go ahead of them. So, but that's a dude that they'll want to keep likely for the playoffs. But putting that aside, a very interesting thought. This is a dude who plays close to 22 minutes a night. So that's second pairing all day. That's first pairing on some teams who are much more well balanced. For us, it would absolutely be second pairing. And he does a lot of the things that RDs don't necessarily do. When you talk about shutdown, when you talk about penalty kill, I'm sure he'd be more than capable of taking on those responsibilities at the highest order on the Montreal Canadiens and be an improvement over whoever else would be there. So that's intriguing. I don't think you're prying him away from Seattle, who has realistic playoff aspirations, but we're getting closer to the type of player that I think would actually benefit the team.
Yeah. So I thought Struble in a first, and that still wouldn't likely be enough, would be my guess. But I also...
No.
I want Sean Dursey in Utah, by the way. I looked at him too. Wasn't as enamored, so he's way younger.
Yeah, him I know
the
less.
The one guy I was like, I could consider Gooley in this one was Philip Hronek.
Oh, wow.
But that's like, you're really shooting for the stars at that point.
Right.
The prime out of Vancouver. We just said Vancouver. That's a rebuild. That's a team you can... And also, like, I know I was making fun of St. Louis. You can swindle St. Louis. Clearly, you can. Like, I'm sure they can convince him that we still have Christian Dvorak on our roster and we can just trade him. I'm sure there's stuff we can do with St. Louis to Jedi mind trick them into Robert Thomas. Yeah, Hronek, I just was like, yeah, this is the only guy. Like, I was going through Larson. I was just looking at him like, is straight up for Gooley stupid? And I was like, yes, it is. And then I was like, okay, who do I have to get to? What, like, in terms of like non-contender, kind of about to do a rebuild, who is the right team? And Vancouver, you obviously identified Vancouver too for a forward spot. I looked defense, but no, that's not happening. He's way too good.
Yeah, fair enough. I got one for you, so I'll do my last kind of target guy. And so I don't even know how to word this, but like when we were looking at the 2022 draft, which was the first draft that we looked at, right? That was the first coverage we ever did, was the 2022 draft where we got Slafkovsky. There was one guy, in terms of skill and speed especially, who jumped off the page, leapt off the page with a rocket ship, and has been disappointing ever since, and whose manager has been allowed to speak to other teams. I'm talking about Brad Lambert.
Okay.
Do you remember him?
Vaguely. I was worried you were going down a different road because Evander Kane was also given that information recently about his agent being allowed. It didn't track with the 2022 stuff, but I had a mild panic attack. No. Please let's...
Did you think...
Yeah, no.
I was trying to make the listeners kind of freak out that I was about to mention Shane Wright, but...
All right, Brad Lambert, what do we got?
That situation sucks. So, incredibly high skill, very high speed. We both remember that from his draft year. That has not changed. The other stuff has not been figured out. And so with the Manitoba Moose, who are average at best, they're third in their division. They're a little bit lower than halfway down in the Western Conference of the AHL. None of their players have over 2/3 of a point per game at this point. So they're not a team that necessarily scores a lot, but he has even less than that. 5 goals, 6 assists in 26 games for 11 points. So a guy who's this high skill and who it's not panning out for is scary. Not only that, 2 years prior, 55 points in 64 games, then 35 in 61, now 11 in 26. There's regression there. So this is a guy who's been, his manager has been allowed to speak to other teams. Is this the type of thing where he went late in the first round, and now that he's regressed so much and they don't believe him in him anymore, and like he's requested to get out, can you go, yeah, we'll give you a third, and you just roll the dice on him, on a sublimely high skill dude who's still young?
Yeah, I think I'd give you a Riley Kidney for him. I'm not doing much for this. If a guy has regressed this much from D+2 to D+4, that kind of terrifies me. So I think there's like the Habs did a much better version of this with Bolduc for Mailloux, or Mailloux for Bolduc. That's kind of, I wouldn't want to do it again. This is an off-season trade, I think, to me.
That's your limit type of thing? Like
I think it's, let's dig through our own crates and find our own mildly disappointing prospect, and we can flip him, sure. Like, that's kind of how I would look at it. Like, if we're not happy with Machar and they kind of think they can, and it's like, here's my project for your project. Let's see if a change of scenery works for either guy. That's kind of how I would view that's the structure of how this probably should be framed, because there's nothing in here to say that he deserves a breakthrough to the big team, and if he can't make a bad Winnipeg team, then he's not making this team either, for
sure. I mean, like, he's not even really getting a monstrous amount of ice time on his AHL team, let alone an NHL squad, so that makes perfect sense. No, this idea, I think you're probably right. It's a project for a project, and hopefully both guys then pan out through a change of scenery. I think that's right.
Okay, last one, my fun one. Look, they're not going to do this because they already gave us a center, and they need centers. But I feel like if we could, in the same concept where I was like, how can we get Will Cooley out of New York? This is kind of an escape from LA situation where we try to take Quentin Byfield away from them.
That's a huge name. That would require so much.
Yeah, but like, he's having a down year. He's not progressing the way a second overall pick should be progressing, as one would expect. And now look, LA, the Kings are where dreams go to die right now. And as long as they keep that coach there, that's going to continue. So I think it's almost where you're crushing your own value with your own guy, to the point where it's like, why, he's just not working here. Again, he's a center, so this would have to be, and there's a high pedigree with Byfield.
Yeah.
3 more years on the contract, and then he's a UFA. So that's fine. So yeah, it's a big name, but this is the one that I wanted to go fun with. Like, this is there's a lot of so the guy that'd be going back is Kirby Dach, because it's a very similar situation, I find, where it's like, they're starting to lose you. Well, it's Danault in terms of like, I mean that's the guy going back. They don't want Danault back for Byfield. That'd be amazing. Imagine how pissed he would be. So,
oh my God.
It's Dach in terms of like, Dach, it's a reclamation, like a reclamation project, but this time it's Quentin Byfield. The trade I put together was Kirby Dach, Florian Xhekaj, and this year's first. I don't think that's enough. But like, again, like, Quentin Byfield is just not been great.
You know what
this
it
year.
Does though? I don't know if this was your thinking, but that's the amalgam you would need to replicate Quentin Byfield.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's the exact amalgam. Like, it's a skilled center in Dach, It's a big dude who's punishing in Jack-Eye, because Byfield is big and he'll throw the body around. I don't know where the first fits in, but like, because Doc was a first as well. But anyway, that's fascinating. That's a really interesting one. They would want more, I think, just for the pedigree and for Doc's injury history, like to give up a dude who was drafted this high, number 2 in 2020. That would require a lot, and a perennially injured, albeit really skilled Kirby Dach, plus these other things. I don't know that it gets you there. Keep in mind, like the Montreal Canadiens pick would be what, 20th?
Yeah.
If they don't make it far?
Yeah, something like that. It's not bad value.
It's not bad, but no, it's not.
I think it's more identifying that the Kings lining up with the Oilers, by the way, very much in play for a 5th straight year,
no,
I believe.
Poor them.
It's really honestly in play that Oilers finish 2 and the Kings can make their way up to 3 and Vegas stays in 1. So that, along with the slight disappointing season, like there's a universe where they're like, yeah, okay, let's see what we can do with this. Point again, I'm just trying to identify, like, let's just keep an eye on him. I'm trying to identify the weaknesses around the league, and I feel like the Kings, we both targeted the Blues, maybe something. It's like these are the teams to be looking at of like this can be exploited in some capacity, and let's find the right guys to exploit. And if Quinn Byfield can be freed and brought to the Canadiens, like imagine what he could do. He would be the second line center, right? Like you just dump him next to Slav and Demidov.
I think so.
So
at absolute worst, you would retain the chemistry of that second line and put him on the third, and he would very quickly, I think, under Martin St. Louis, re-find his love of the game. Like, how quickly would a dude like this just fall in love with the system the Montreal Canadiens are playing, first of all, that freewheeling style, and then second of all, like a big left-handed centerman, even if he doesn't pan out as your second line center. I think third line center would be his floor, right? Do you agree with that? Like a bruiser third line center who still has some skill and some ability. Even that it might be worth it for what we were talking about before. Like that might just solidify everything, especially if Michael Hage is who we believe him to be and would be your second line center anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, I think just keep an eye on, and some of these discussions, we kind of also, I feel like this discussion is usually almost a preamble for June. For July, for like, this is the beginning of the conversation.
These names come back.
We talked about Noah Dobson this time last year. Like, right? Like we were thinking it through. I mean, like, hey, like what about Noah Dobson in New York? How can we, wiggle him out? And turns out we were 4 to 6 months too early. And that's when I got it. So I think like these are the names we should be looking at for now. And like, again, like to bring it back to trade deadline, it's mostly garbage. It's not high quality stuff that you want. We did not talk about Dougie Hamilton because they should not be trading for Dougie Hamilton. I think we mentioned Mangiapane quickly, but like, no. Connor Murphy, no. Boone Jenner, probably not, no, in terms of what he's going to cost. Braden Shen, no. Marcia, so yeah, right. Like Jordan Kyrou, absolutely not. Andrew Peak, they're not trading him. Like Alex Tuck, he's also not being traded. Like he's the guy to go, but Buffalo's definitely not trading Alex Tuck. So it's going to be tough for anything to happen. Hopefully we've talked about the right names, but not only for the next few weeks, the trade deadline, I think March 7th, 8th, something like that, but also for the next discussion in June when the real team building happens.
So if things happen the way that we believe they will and no move is made for the Montreal Canadiens, are you comfortable with the roster as it stands with guys coming back going into the playoffs?
There's no way this would happen, but if we could just get UL Armia back, I would say hell yeah.
Okay.
That's what, like, I just thought of him. Yeah, it's kind of like where I was last year. I'm like, I just think this is the team for this year, with the exception of that 6th defenseman, which doesn't have to be the number 6. He can move, that new guy could be number 4, right? But you know what I mean? Like another,
it just has to move the bottom down by 1. Exactly.
It has to boot out Jack-Eye or Struble. Other than that, I think this is the team. I think it's Kapanen's going to be the second line center. If they make it in game 1 of the playoffs, he's there. I think the 4th line at this point will most likely be the Bolduc, Doc, Evans trio with Danault and Gallagher. Again, someone's gonna get bumped for Newhook somewhere, I think. Maybe. This is, I think, the team for this year, with the small caveat of that one other defenseman, if they can find it. Beyond that, no, I think this is the crew for this year. They'll see what they get and they'll make adjustments. And then Jurovsky won't come over, but Hage will be a big entry next year, whether he's on the big team or in the with the Rocket. And then you have Beck, and then you have Florian Jack. Like there's other guys still banging on the door. But for now, this is the team. this is the team, like just like last year, that was the team they had. This is the team they have this year. It's not the time to go in for, I think, for Trocheck, or certainly not for Panarin, or for less so for O'Reilly or for Stamkos. I know we talked about those last two guys, but like odds are it's not quite the time for that just yet.
Yeah. And I would be shunned by my father if I didn't bring up one thing, because he asked me about, during our mailbag a few weeks back, he asked me about Sidney Crosby, and Pittsburgh is second in the Metropolitan this year. They're making the playoffs.
Dead.
Not happening. Would love it, Dad, but unfortunately not this year.
And also them making the playoffs means he's never getting moved. The idea was
right, because they have the belief of like, we could do this again. Yeah, let's run it back.
The idea was continued erosion would get Sid to be like, screw this, I need to go win one more time. They're making the playoffs or competitive enough. They're going to be there. We thought they'd be one of the worst teams in the league, and that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Whether they're playoff bound or will just miss, I think this season's enough to say Sid's a one-team guy, and oh well.
Which, good for him. Respect to that.
We'll just sign Bedard when he's a free agent. We'll look, listen. Or McDavid, actually, in 2 years. That's the guy. It's true. We're going to go get him.
Dude.
Okay. All right. We'll stop.
Dude.
We'll stop. We're going to get done. Like
we got to stop there.
Anyways, we hope you enjoyed the episode. You can follow us on social media at HabsLandPod. If you like what you hear, please feel free to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And until next Monday, go Habs.